Welcome to another episode of The Unseen Paranormal, where some of the scariest things are unseen. I'm your host, Eric Freeman. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today we have two great guests. We are chatting with paranormal investigators and researchers Brandon Alvis and Mustafa Gatollari. You may recognize them from A&E's Ghost Hunters, but today we're going to discuss their upcoming book, Elements of a Haunting, Connecting History with Science to Uncover the Greatest Ghost Stories Ever Told. The book will be available January 8th, 2022, but you can pre-order it now on Amazon, Kindle, BarnesandNoble.com, or at Llewellyn.com. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, man. Pleasure.
Thanks for having us. Hell yeah, man. That was a nice intro. That was good. Did you rehearse that? That was excellent. Seamless.
I just wrote it like 30 minutes ago, actually. So
I can't even order that fluently when I'm at a restaurant. Like I stumble over. I know what I'm gonna get like days in advance. That was great.
I've done this for a little while now, so I've gotten better as I've gone along. But everybody who listens to the show would know that, you know, I've talked to y'all, both of y'all individually in season 1 of the show here, and so I was excited to have y'all on to talk together about your new book coming up, and I'm excited about the book. So how did y'all decide to write the book?
Oh man, we've been talking about this, I think, since like our second case for Ghost Hunters while on the road. Brandon had always expressed wanting to write a book, and then I had an idea, and then I don't know, like our ideas kind of just seem to complement each other really well. What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's 17 years worth of research coming together. I mean, geez, Mustafa and I hit it off right away when we met in Burbank when we were actually trying out for the show. And once we actually got into the swing of things with Ghost Hunters and we were out on, you know, actually doing cases and out on the road, we just kept throwing ideas at each other, and it, you know, started to really stick. And we reached out to multiple publishers and had a couple offers, and we ended up signing with Llewellyn and putting out this book. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, and so you put a lot of stories in from a lot of investigations that you had done on Ghost Hunters. From what I remember, I think when me and you talked, Brandon, you had mentioned that. So how did you decide to what stories and what places to put in the book to begin with?
I think we really wanted to hit on, first it started with the work, and it's the different paranormal theories. It's not like necessarily so much like what case is going to be like the most salacious, what's going to be the most exciting. The excitement for us has always been through the work, and that's what we have to make exciting, because that's the most challenging thing to do, and that's what's going to keep us engaged. And if we're engaged and we're interested, I firmly believe that the material itself is going to be interesting, because if you're interested, you're interesting. So what we decided to do was, okay, what do we want to talk about? What are the cool theories that we've developed over the course of our investigations together? And then we took it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, again, we just kept throwing theories out at each other. And, you know, I've been very lucky with, you know, founding APRA, the American Paranormal Research Association, to work with some amazing, you know, medical doctors, scientists, engineers, and having that third-party expertise to really help me in finding my protocol, the ethics, the standards, you know, the way scientists would conduct their own research, and really adapting that into the paranormal. And we started to implement that in Ghost Hunters, on A&E's Ghost Hunters, and Mustafa and I really put that to practice out in the field. And there were certain cases that really stuck out where we used this methodology, the standards, the protocol, and the ethics that really worked out for us in a big way. The data was there, all the information was there, empirical evidence, and we really wanted to break that down beyond the 42 minutes you see on Ghost Hunters. And the book really does a good job at doing that, and really, I think, setting a nice standard for the paranormal field, which you don't see a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And y'all came up with a classification system for ghost and hauntings for this book. What's different than kind of the classifications that you see out there now with, you know, intelligent versus residual haunting, and y'all kind of came up with your own classification?
Well, I'm Brandon's very, very humble about it, but I mean, that classification system is like 99.99999% all Brandon. He had that developed well before I ever even started working with him. So he could definitely speak more to that. But we found in our cases, like they fit, all these things we found fit into this classification system that he's been developing over a decade.
Yeah, you know, what's cool is, you know, when I started working with Dr. Harry Clore, I asked him, I'm like, you're a world-renowned scientist. How do you conduct scientific research? And he started to really point out a lot of the things that paranormal investigators do that are just completely wrong when it comes to, being taken seriously by the scientific community or the public.
Right.
And one thing he mentioned was you have to have some form of classification system. You don't go to a zoo and say you saw a bunch of animals. You go to a zoo and you saw tigers, monkeys, lions, things like that. So we really had to go through history and throughout the entire history of paranormal investigation and ghost hunting, if you will, and see what people have found and the terminology that they use. And that's something that we heavily researched, went back into case logs dating back to the 1890s with the Ghost Club of London. And we started to look at the things they were experiencing, the history associated with that, and how that phenomena took place. And we just started to compile all that and really break it down according to some of the data that we collected and the empirical evidence. And all that really came together, I would say, at the Athenaeum, the case at this amazing building in downtown Indianapolis. And we kind of put all that together in one instance. And we found what we believe to be a gray lady haunting the location. And that's associated with not only the history of the woman that was tragically murdered, but with the data we collected. Wouldn't you say, Mustafa?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, we were fortunate enough to meet with Nicole Kabrowski, who I went and bought some of her other books, and her other book that she wrote that was the basis for a lot of our research for Dr. Helene Kanabe, who was who we believed we established contact with at the Athenaeum. But while we were there, we were investigating a location called Grandma's Attic. And a little known fact, if you're on a paranormal show, especially one with a large team, when they're like rolling out, like, okay, you're going to go to this location, you're going to investigate this spot. When Brandon and I were assigned Grandma's Attic, at first we were like, come on, man, we got a raw deal. Like, this sucks. Like, we don't want to see this place like the first, because it's a small space. Doesn't seem like there's much going on there. So we went up, we did our due diligence. We explained why people are experiencing the sensations that they're experiencing there. Funhouse effect. It's an attic. Heat rises to the top. It's oppressive. It's just a miserable place to be for an extended period of time. But as we were exiting, when we were about to wrap up our investigation, we, put out a feeler there. It says, if there's any entities here who would like to communicate with us, could you please give us a sign of your presence? And all of a sudden we start getting pressure hits on our EDI, and there's huge spikes in barometric pressure. I mean, I think it was drops. So for the Athenaeum, it was drops, and like just very, very steep precipitations of barometric pressure. And then we started to ask back and forth, question and answer, follow-up questions that were all concurrent with barometric pressure hits. So that was where we started going, like, okay, well, pressure, all right. And then that phenomenon left from Grandma's Attic. And then the second night when we were actually in the auditorium area, our communication kept going with different pressure hits. So it's really mind-boggling. Like that's when I think the wheels really started turning for us, that we're like, wow, not only did Brandon made the suggestions, to introduce the EDI plus and the ambisonic microphones, binaural, and the EMCCD camera. But that was like that was like very, very groundbreaking for paranormal research, where no one had ever really thought, would there be, because we always that heavy feeling, right? Or like you get the chills. No one has ever quantitatively shown that there is a distinct change in pressure that is consistent with weird phenomena. And, if that doesn't make your ball hair stand up, I mean, I don't know what does. That was like for me, I was like, holy crap, I was over the moon.
Yeah, and also coming at it from a scientific standpoint, you have to have those readings that you can recreate, can be recreated, but you don't have contamination. So like with people using like EMF meters, there's so much contamination out. I mean, it's insane. I was on a private residence investigation last year, and we had to unplug the Wi-Fi modem because the EMF detectors were just like insane. It was like 800, 900. I'm like, no wonder these people are having, these weird feelings and seeing things. It's messing with their brain. So to come at it from, especially with like the EMCCD camera, that there's no way that that's not something, paranormal, because watching y'all recreate it on TV and it looking nothing like the light anomalies, and also the way that the tech works. And then, like you were talking about, Mustafa, with the pressure drops, it's hard to explain something else messing with the barometric pressure like that in like a single area.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially like on cue with like questions and
Right.
then waiting and making sure it's not rhythmic. Like that's I don't know. It's still I still get so juiced up every time I talk about it and remember that moment.
What's really cool about that too is the fact that we've had, successful data collection in multiple locations with these baselines and these readings with barometric pressure, and then we start to correlate devices together. So like the EMCCD camera, and capturing these amazing, light anomalies, these, full body apparitions, if that's what you want to call it per se. But we started to notice that we're seeing huge drops and spikes in pressure when these events are taking place. So now we're correlating devices, and that's real science. And that's what makes this so, interesting. And the fact that we have this data that we can take to a third party, someone that's very much an expert with these devices, and they can say, hey, look, this is not a natural phenomenon. And at that point, it's paranormal. So I think that it's great work, and it's extremely exciting. And we lay that out in the book. We show exactly how we do it, how we conduct the research, and what's really been successful for us. And, it's, again, very exciting.
Well, and I love that you're taking that approach and doing that, because for so many years now, it's been the same thing. It's been the same thing with, voice recorders, which are easily, you can have anomalous sounds that it's not something paranormal. Like I was saying with the EMF detectors, they weren't made for hunting ghosts per se, and they're fallible. And there's all this technology, and then don't even get me started with spirit boxes and all that crap, but because they're just ridiculous, But and the apps that people use on their phone, but you get people starting to like buck up against you because they're so comfortable in doing this, and it's entertaining, I guess. I don't know. So when you start the science stuff, I've seen, like, especially on your Instagram and stuff, Brandon, with you posting stuff that goes against the mainstream paranormal, with you getting like some bounce back from people, because you've got these people in the field, especially a lot of them. I don't even know if a lot of them, but some of the TV shows, that's how they make their money. So when you start pushing up back against that, then they kind of get nasty.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's unfortunate too, because, I'm not trying to talk down to people or say I know, better than them, or I'm, superior to them in any way. It's just the fact that I've been very lucky to work with professionals from these technical industries that are really trying to help us push the field forward to be taken seriously. And, it's one thing to go out and be a hobbyist or a paratourist and enjoy yourself and have a, thrill or, adrenaline rush, if you will. But if we want to be taken seriously, and if we want to really find these questions and these answers to the possibility of a life after death, we have to follow a strict protocol, a methodology. And, I try and put those bits of information out there, and I'm trying to do my best and do my part to really help push the field forward. And unfortunately, it can be nasty sometimes, and it can have a, pushback. But I want what's best for all of us in the field. I want to be taken seriously. I want to find those answers that we're looking for. And that's one thing that all of us from every walk of life, we can be any race, color, creed, whatever it may be. We all are going to die one day. And those questions, need to be answered in some way. That's what I'm looking for. And hopefully, with the advancement of technology and the help of various technical industries, we can get to that spot.
Yeah, and and I think your approach with the scientific stuff, it's when you put it out there for scrutiny, it's harder for people to just dismiss it as like some of the other evidence, because you can look on YouTube and find so many videos of things that are easily explainable, but people don't want to listen with that. And so that's why, I'm a fan of both of y'all and what you're doing, because I think we need that in the paranormal field to push it forward in more scientific manner, for sure.
Yeah, I just think it's something that happens in every single industry or vocation after a certain period of time, is that there are people who are comfortable with making whatever gains that they can get with comfortable, preset methodologies. And what happens is when people start taking themselves, we get real philosophical, when people start taking themselves and their own egos and their own personas more seriously than the situation, like that's when the problems really start to arise. It's like, well, this is the method that I did, and this is happening because I'm here, as opposed to like, no, we're working towards these methodologies. It's all about the work. I mean, that's the biggest reason why we made the book, and we want other people to add on top of it. I mean, I heard this awesome thing the other day about someone who was using like dog whistles and messing around with like subsonic and different sound frequencies, which Brandon did in when we were in Wendover, Utah, at that air base. And over there, like, you know, with the Spiricom experiment, like things that would never occur. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let's add to this, and let's share our data so we can actually maybe someday, it's like my dream of like finding a way to, okay, we can reliably communicate with whatever this entity is, or whatever these entities are that we're communicating with, to get more and more of this phenomenon, and document more and more of this phenomenon. Because the more that we document it, the more we can examine it, and the more data points we have, the better we can narrow it down and understand it. But if we're just going to be talking to flashlights for the next 50 years, you know, it's just idiotic. It's just one big paranormal circle jerk. Right. And it's like, people don't want you to shatter this little comfortable world that they created. It's like, it's not about you. It's about the work. So get your head out of your butt.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And it's fun to do paranormal events and you know, entertain people in a certain way, because when you do an event, you have people come out, you can still entertain them, but also not do things like flashlight and things like that don't necessarily work and fool people into thinking that they had a paranormal experience when they really didn't, just because they paid money to come to your event. You can still use techniques like we were talking before we started recording about an event that I did doing like the roundtable EVP, and I've had success with that, you know, and yeah, you got a lot of people in the room, but when you get that voice that you just know nobody else is talking, you know, so you can do things like that to entertain people when they come to events and stuff, without all the tricks and fake stuff like the flashlight, because I don't like the flashlight stuff either. And but also in your title for your book, y'all put in there connecting the history with the science. And this is one thing that I've talked about a lot here on the show, is how important it is to know the history of places and to do a deep dive into research, especially if you're, you know, not just a paranormal tourist or just a, you know, hobbyist going out and ghost hunting. So why do y'all think that's important to do the history as well as science, especially in like terms of the book?
Putting my like own expertise and what I've done over the past, you know, 15 plus years aside, the instances where we've been able to have some of our more significant interactions were all very, very steeped in knowing a good amount of a location's history. Worley Hospital in Pampa, Texas, a very specific situation. The Galena Marine Hospital, bringing in an actual steamboat captain into a place that was otherwise completely dead. Not only did Daryl and I get interactions while inside the hospital, but Brandon and Brian were outside, and they caught a figure on the cupola right when we brought the steamboat captain in there. And those are just like two examples of when you know your history and you can talk about those different data points, and then sometimes that blows an entire investigation wide open.
Yeah, and I don't understand. For me, I don't understand some of these groups that I've talked to and I've heard. They're like, you know, I want to go in blind, or, you know, not know anything about it. But I think that lessens what you can get out of a location. Like you're saying, Mustafa, sometimes it just blows it open, because if you do certain things as triggers, or even it's easier to connect, okay, why is this activity going on? And it kind of backs up, you know, your activity that you catch if you know the history. And so if certain thing happened in this one location and you're getting this anomalous stuff, then it kind of just backs up your data.
I think a lot of it also has to do with personal resistance. Naturally, we're lazy and not going to want to do as much work, and research requires work. It requires more things to know. So I would say, if you're somebody who maybe is toying with the idea of, you know, I don't know how many people I've met who are actually psychic, but people who want to know if they're psychic and they can go to a location and they can medium their way through things. I've met some mediums or people who are sensitive who probably really aren't, but they just don't want to like know a lot about a location, so they use that as an excuse. I was like, I just went in blind, and this is the feeling that I got, and what I feel is everything. Versus people who really, really, really do want to know something about a location and say, ooh, but I'm toying with this idea of being a psychic. Okay, I'm going to restrain myself. I'm going to go in and then I'm going to feel the place out for a couple of nights, and then I'm going to leave and then check the history and see if anything checks out. But you got to do the work.
Right.
I think it all just boils down to people doing the work and not just being like, well, I'm so great, and let me just go in and whatever I do is going to blow this place open. It's like, no, you're just lazy.
Yeah. And for the book, I know we've seen, like we've talked about the EMCCD camera and like the data loggers. Have y'all incorporated any newer technology?
We have some stuff in the works, actually. We're, working with a guy that's very brilliant, someone that we met actually through the network, someone that was actually on the network. And we got some stuff in the works that we're working on. Then once we have some data to provide to the public and have some, examples of how the technology is working, we'll provide that information at a later date for sure.
That's awesome. I'd be excited to see what else y'all come up with because of the scientific basis for everything that you're doing. Even here lately, I've seen the EMCCD camera being used a lot more. I talked to Brian and Rochelle a little while back, and I also talked to Kendall and Vera about their new film, Sleepless Unrest, and they got some interesting stuff at the Conjuring House using the EMCCD camera, and so we kind of talked about that. But to see other people in the field using it, I think is awesome because, like you're talking about, adding to the data points that y'all have already collected and kind of getting out there in the field and getting people to kind of come out of their boxes that they're comfortable in, like you were talking about, Mustafa. So do y'all have any other projects coming up? I know the book is coming out in January, and so y'all are kind of busy with doing media and stuff for that. But what else y'all have going on?
Yeah, we have well, I think about like 4 different things that we're currently working on. There's one project outside the continental United States due to a lot of weird political things and weather-related things. We weren't able to film it just yet, but that's ready to go. And we have a few other places that we're going to go in and do some documentaries about. So, yep, it's a lot of work. We have more pre-production material than we know what to do with at this point. But yeah, there's definitely a need for it. And we've been keeping very, 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 very busy.
Yeah. I look forward to any documentary stuff that y'all do because, they can only show so much in like a 45-minute TV show. And so to see y'all do what you do in a documentary format where you kind of have as long as you want to play around and put in there what you want, you don't have to worry about commercials and all that stuff. That would be awesome.
No, yeah, for sure. We have a lot going on right now in the South and I, which is really great. And we have some locations that have never been seen before. And we're really diving deep into not only the paranormal side of things, but the cultural belief aspect. How does that change what we perceive to be paranormal phenomena? How does that change what we perceive to be a haunting? And that's something you don't see a lot in the field. People will go to a location, specifically because there was a murder there, right, or someone died tragically in a location. But how does the living people in an area and their belief system affect the environment of a location? And that's something we're really diving deep into with these projects, and something that we're, not only excited about, but we think that can have some really great results, outside of just the historical aspect and the science aspect. How does one's own belief system, change the makeup of a location? And you don't see a lot of that. You see a lot of, not only disrespect to eyewitness testimonies at times, but you see a lot of disrespect to the possible entities that are at these places. People don't take into account the way they lived their life, who they were as people, and that they were one-time people. And I think that's something that we're really going to work on, and hopefully we'll shine through with the next project.
I was just talking to a gentleman the other day for an upcoming episode, and we were talking about time slips and time shifts. Have y'all dove into that at all? With maybe that's part of some of the haunting stuff. It's not actually ghosts. It's just some of that stuff.
Yeah. Brandon is probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about it because I'll talk his ear off about it. But he had sent me something super interesting. I mean, last year, Sir Roger Penrose was on the Joe Rogan podcast and he was talking about black holes. And there's one thing that is the last thing to live inside of a black hole, and that is light. And black holes thrive on pressure. So if you do any study of time travel or any study about, just the nature of time, because time is not on a flat line. Right. It's our entire concept of time is based on this linear thinking, but it's not that way. It's just we don't understand it or can comprehend it in any other way. So if you have light, which the beginning of its life cycle is the same amount of time as the end of its life cycle, and it's just this, I guess, cyclical thing, and you factor that with a lot of this phenomenon that we're capturing evidence of with the EMCCD camera are all photon events.
Right.
And then there's pressure changes that are occurring at the same time. Well, what do we know about time travel? Two of the biggest, scientific properties that is studied when it comes to time travel are pressure and light. So it's a very, very, very rough entry point, but we do know that shifts in pressure and light anomalies have almost everything to do with our most significant paranormal finds. So is that telling us something about time? Is it when you address entities, there's this idea that you always address them in present tense, and we've been getting a lot of responses when we address them in present tense. Are we peering through like a pinhole in time, a moment in time when we talk to these entities? Or do entities manifest after they die because matter is neither created nor destroyed? Do they manifest into light sources? And we're just capturing that. And they're kind of, the afterlife is really just a light source that is in this time loop that, because of the certain elements of a haunting, shameless plug, because of that, those elements of a haunting that are perfectly set up, are we able to get a glimpse of that and document it? Don't know.
Yeah, and not only that, you think about transversality and different dimensions intersecting at certain points, and where is that happening? What's taking place within that? That's another aspect to this whole idea and theory. But again, the black hole theories and what's happening within black holes is something that really jumped out to us when we started to implement the EMCCD camera with the pressure changes. I mean, we started to data log these, crazy pressure changes right in front of the line of sight of the camera, and collecting these amazing anomalies with the EMCCD camera. And it's too much of a coincidence or too much of a correlation to ignore. And that's something we actually lay out in the book in a big way. I think it's going to be something that's very interesting for people that really take this field seriously, to look at this idea and to look at these data points and say, hey, look, there's something more to this. Let's look into this at haunted locations throughout the world. Is this a worldwide phenomena? And hopefully when people read the book and really see the work we've done, hopefully they'll implement that into their own research.
Yeah, I've kind of been diving in. Like I said, I just spoke to a gentleman named Von Brashler who has written some great books on time slips and collecting stories. But the more that I've kind of dove into it and looking at the different stories, the more I saw that you can connect things like deja vu, the Mandela effect, like the missing 411 stuff, glitches in the Matrix. All of that stuff, as well as maybe some of the haunted stuff, could all be wrapped in time slip phenomena. And that it happens a lot more than we actually realize.
Yeah,
for sure.
There was a crazy find that we had, and we included it in the book too, which was in Oakville, Illinois. We're at the original Springs Hotel, where during a B-roll shoot day, one of the members of our production crew snapped a photo in a hallway. What it looked like in this hallway where this individual had shot himself and passed away. The first thought that came to their heads was, there's somebody kind of charging towards the camera. But when I went back and further looked at the photo again, but it looked like Russ, our production manager, Russ Caton, who it looked like his back. It didn't look like somebody charging at the camera. When I went and really analyzed his photo, it looked like him walking away, and he had just walked through that area a few minutes prior. So were the elements of a haunting at that particular moment responsible for basically like retaining his energy when he was through there, and then we captured that? I mean, that explains doppelgangers when people think they see somebody. I had an instance of that when I was younger, when I thought I saw my grandfather walk down the stairs, and he walked out the front door, but he had been at my aunt's house in Maywood. We were in New City, New York, and he was there for 45 minutes, and he had left an hour previously. So it's just like, okay, well, what's the reasoning behind this? I don't know.
Yeah, and with something like that, like with doppelgangers, it's you're seeing a person that is alive, and so yeah, what would explain that? And the time slip stuff, just a lot, and also the more I talk about the paranormal and dive into it with different people, the more I see that it's all connected. all of it in some way is connected. And it just, I love all the new theories like coming forward with the time slips and that type of stuff, because it does help explain some of it. And I think that there probably still is intelligent spirits, because we get intelligent, responses. And like, I've been touched on locations, I'm sure y'all have too. How do you explain stuff like that if it's with a time slip? But I think a lot of what we see, especially with the residual stuff, is a lot of time slip type phenomena. So any plans for any other books?
We'll see how this one does. We have so many ideas, man. There's a lot out there right now that Mustafa and I are working on. I think probably the next project will be something visual in some capacity, obviously. But we have a lot of ideas, a lot of stuff we're working on, and they can be put into both formats. So
yeah. Well, I was just asking because I know I've been working on my own book, and I know there's so much research I've done, and I have to narrow it down to just a finite thing, and so I'm going to be left with lots of stuff left over. And I think, Mustafa, you mentioned that y'all had so much post-production stuff to work with. So I didn't know if y'all had another book planned or not.
Yeah, no, we definitely have a ton of different ideas for that. But there's like, there's different stages of where we're at. It's like, okay, we have this thing's like ready to shoot or do. And then we have these other things that, okay, we're just waiting on to go and put these into production. And then we have these like book ideas here. So they're just at different stages in terms of their development. And then you never know. Sometimes someone will be like, oh, okay, cool, let's do this idea. And then we have to go and reshuffle the deck and get back to it. But there's like a couple of specific spots that could definitely warrant their own book, their own mini series. And we have those on deck. So I really, really can't wait to get working on those and push them out for everybody. Because, there's nobody doing what we're doing with these spots. So hopefully other people will copy, and then they can do that and copy it the right way. And then, we can get better data points out there.
Yeah, I'm so glad y'all are doing what you're doing. Keep doing it. I'm so tired of seeing the cookie cutter formula on TV, and it's the same shit over and over again, and it's just ridiculous. It's not furthering the field. It's just, it's the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome, and it's just not. But everybody, like I said, they can go and pre-order the book. It comes out January 8th, 2022, and they can find both of you on all the social medias and check out what you're doing. I know, Mustafa, you got a lot of dates coming up throughout the year that you're going to be doing appearances around the country and doing hunts, and that people can come out and hang out with
Brandon and I are going to be doing a couple together finally, so I'm stoked about that. We did Glen Tavern last year, and now we're going to be doing Old Park Hotel in Ballinger, Texas, and then we got the hospital on College Hill.
Awesome. Yeah, and y'all be posting on your social medias. They can go check that out. And they can also find dates on Flamery Promotions website as well.
Yep. And on my link tree on my Instagram, or just Google it, you'll find it. I post incessantly about it.
I'll put links in the show notes to all that stuff too, and so people can go and pre-order your book. But I thank y'all for coming and chatting with me today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, it's a pleasure to be here for sure.
You're the man, Eric.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. Join us next time for a new episode of The Unseen Paranormal. Until then, head over to the Unseen Paranormal Lounge on Facebook for all the latest updates and discussions about the show. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, or at unseenparanormalpodcast.com. And please rate, review, share, and subscribe to help more people discover the show. The Unseen Paranormal Podcast is proud to be the ambassador for paranormal for Verbal.com. A big thank you to my friend Chris Lips for the awesome theme music. You can find more of his music on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. And as always, thank you for listening.
As you pass the other side.